Hello and welcome everybody to a Monday edition of Blind Eye Live. Welcome to the show. I am Hunter King, Blind Eye himself, owner proprietor of Blind Eye Media. And today we're going to get into my offensive position ratings for this year's NFL draft. After this week, draft content, well, there will be draft recap stuff next week, but no more draft preview content. We will be pretty much all NBA coverage after the draft ends. I will be getting into some NBA playoff thoughts. Before we get into the offensive rankings, I do not have any graphics for my rankings because, to be frank, I've just had so much going on and I just haven't made any because I'm not good at that. It would literally just be me, finding a way to share Microsoft Word and throwing that up there, and probably just typing it on the fly. But we'll get to that later. First, I want to get in. Well, I've got a few news and notes type things. So towards the end of last week or over the weekend, Byron Pringle, who just got signed to a free agent contract by the Chicago Bears, he got arrested for reckless driving on a suspended license. So to have a suspended license, you already had to do something stupid. And I guess he decided, hey, I'm just going to double down on stupidity on a suspended license. He should never be allowed to get his license again. Maybe that's a little harsh, but I'm just tired of seeing these. I'm tired of seeing professional athletes and celebrities do this stupid crap, irresponsible crap, and not get treated the same way normal people would. It's beyond me. I don't none of us should have time for any of this. And I don't want to anybody saying, well, you give leeway to certain people. It's yeah, because this is not some kind of just he said, she said thing or something with no witnesses or no evidence. When you get caught speeding, 30 miles over the speed limit or whatever reckless driving charges in your area, which is usually, from what I understand, some places are as low as 15, but usually I want to say it's 20 miles an hour and up over the speed limit. And you're already on a suspended license. This is like Leonard Fournette's net in Jacksonville levels of just lazy, self-absorbed stupidity. Selfishness. I have no time for it. I'm going to be harsh about it. I don't care what anyone thinks. It's a privilege to do what these guys do for a living and to make the money that they make. And it's an absolute open disregard for other people, the law just in general. This just shows you don't care about anybody except for yourself, as far as I'm concerned. It's so dumb. This is just like Kelvin Joseph being in the vehicle. And people could say, well, it's not like he wanted, the people that he was in the car with to shoot someone because, he was just a passenger in the vehicle. How about don't hang around with a bunch of wannabe, bunch of wannabe bloodthirsty killers? Because that's obviously Kelvin Joseph, that's obviously the type of people he was hanging around. People who wanted to kill someone over petty beef. You hang around trash, you're going to end up in trash situations. Hopefully Kelvin Joseph's learned his lesson. I guarantee you, the Dallas Cowboys will put an ultimatum down on him to ditch those people. And if he doesn't, his NFL career is going to end up being over. Or at the very least, his Cowboys career will end, and he'll have to pull like an Adam Pac-Man Jones to get back into the league. And the league's a little more sensitive to this kind of stuff now than they were back, when everything went down with Adam Pac-Man Jones. And that situation, in my opinion, Jones was far more to blame for that situation than I believe Joseph was for this. Like, I do believe that Joseph was... I don't believe he had anything to do with this happening. I don't think this is anything he wanted. At the same time, if these are the kind of people you surround yourself with, you're going to end up in those situations. Same thing with Josh Gordon. Part of the reason Josh Gordon's had his issues is because he didn't ditch he did not let go of people that were going to pull him into stuff he didn't need to be doing. He claims that one of his positive tests for marijuana was because he was around friends who were smoking. He wasn't smoking. Well, by that point in your life, you knew that you could test positive for that. Trust me, he did. If he says otherwise, he's either stupid, and I'm just saying, he's either stupid, uninformed, didn't listen to anything, because I guarantee you his agent, I know that when you go into the NFL, they have like a whole program for this, about this kind of stuff, for incoming players. You're told all these things. Heck, in college, your college coaches are probably telling you these things. Like, you should know. And he didn't care. The whole reason Josh Gordon's career, and people can blame the NFL and their policies, whatever. Josh Gordon's just as much to blame because he knew the rules and he wasn't willing to follow them. Now, we can debate on whether the rules are good. Like, to be honest, I don't. I think we need to get away from a lot of the painkillers that we can for a lot of things, and we should be using like CBD and stuff like that. I'm a huge proponent of CBD, stuff. There's a ton of former athletes. A lot of hockey players have gone into this as their retirement career, and they really preach it. And these are guys who, super physical sport like football, and a lot of these guys, I've seen, like, these hockey players, they're playing into their late 30s, sometimes early 40s, who are doing this stuff. Like Mike Camilleri, who was a long time, really great NHL winger, is a big proponent of CBD products as painkillers, or as a healthier alternative to painkillers with none of the bad side effects. But you could say whatever you want, but Josh Gordon is the reason his career hasn't gone correctly. It's not the NFL's fault. It's not. We can have problems with the way the NFL has handled certain things, but at the end of the day, if Josh Gordon wanted his career bad enough, if it really mattered that much to him, he'd figured it out. And I think a lot of people there's a lot of people who use mental health and all these things as a excuse, just like people can use anything. And I'm talking legitimate issues, but use them as a crutch rather than, just something that they have to adjust to and overcome. I know, because when I was early in college and I was failing at things because of my blindness, I didn't know what to do. I got into like a self-pity, place. I wallowed for a bit because I just felt like I was a shell of myself, and I was never going to be able to achieve my dreams and my goals and my ambitions that I had. I was never going to be the fully formed version of myself that I had envisioned, because that had been taken from me by a genetic issue. No, it's just my plan needed to change. It's like I'm going to live a fulfilled and awesome life regardless. But I have to be willing to put in the work, and I have to be willing to do what it takes to overcome. You know, and like, you have to make sacrifices. And you will sacrifice for what you really care about. And as far as I'm concerned, Josh Gordon sacrificed his NFL career for what he really cared about, which is everything else. But I really think that NFL teams, and I think NFL teams need to be, and a lot of them are pretty straightforward about asking people to cut people out of their lives. But if I was running an organization, I'd really be digging. And I know they do. They dig into your friends. They dig into your associates, your entourage, whatever. It's like, if I was an organization, I'd be telling, look, that person's trouble, and they're not going to be around this team or organization. They're not going to be around here. And to be honest, if you don't see the issues with them and the problems they're going to cause you or potentially going to cause you in the future, you might not be what we need here. You might not be long for here either. Which, that's a cost-benefit analysis too, because like, some people are so good, it's like, you just deal with it. I mean, but I think every team has its limits, and I feel like, especially in the current social media climate, cultural climate, teams are shorter leashes than ever. So, you know, but back to the original thing, Byron Pringle pulls a, crap move. You play stupid games, win stupid prizes. I wouldn't be shocked if he... Well, I actually would be shocked because I know how our legal system works. But, he could get jail time for reckless driving on a suspended license. At the very least, he's going to get a hefty fine and probably a extended suspension and potentially a long-term ban from a driver's license. But he's making several $1 million on this contract. He can afford a driver or just to Uber around. Past that, let's talk about some NBA stuff. My goodness, playoffs have been entertaining. The Celtics today closed out a sweep of the Brooklyn Nets. I think it was tonight and not yesterday. But anyway, Celtics have closed out Brooklyn, 4-0 sweep. There's a lot of talk. I'm seeing a bunch of people trashing Steve Nash as a coach. He's still very new to the coaching game. Like, this is what, year 2 for him? I say we give him some more runway. This season was really tough for them. You had all the bull crap that caused the whole Kyrie Irving situation. Kevin Durant missed a lot of time to injury. James Harden's James Harden. He's a lazy, selfish piece of crap. I'm just saying it. That's what he is. That's what he's proven to be. That's what he did to Houston. And he's lazy in that when the going gets tough, instead of burrowing to the rim, like, this is a guy who, during his time in Houston, could get to the basket almost at will. But when things got tough, he just step back three. And if he was missing them, he'd just keep missing them. That's why they lost those series to the Warriors. They had the formula to beat him, except James Harden just decided, I'm not driving the rim anymore. I'm just going to barf up threes that are missing. I'm going to, as good a shooter as he is, it's like, when you're tired, the best thing you can do is get as close to the basket as possible. But then look at the way he got his way out of Houston. That was pathetic. I got a lot of venom tonight about some stuff, but I mean, it's just like it's just pathetic. So Brooklyn in that trade, they trade away Jared Allen, and Jared Allen, which we already could, Allen was already on the team with Durant and Kyrie, and was a great ascending young player. They had Karis LeVert. They had Taurean. They had all these awesome. They had like an extremely deep roster. And they gave that up for James Harden, who a year later was lazy and about, didn't want to be there anymore. And to be honest, I don't know if James Harden wants to be anywhere, because he didn't want to go to Philly. Frankly. Like, he didn't want to be back with Daryl Morey because, Daryl Morey did everything possible to maximize James Harden, but, Daryl Morey was the bad guy, apparently, for James Harden. Like, Morey stomped the table, but James Harden wanted away from Daryl Morey. Allegedly. And then the Nets trade James Harden. And honestly, in my opinion, really good trade. They get Seth Curry and Ben Simmons and whatever. Just in the fact that if Harden didn't want to be there, Ben Simmons didn't want to be in Philly anymore. And maybe here, Simmons would be happy. He'd have complementary pieces that could help maximize him. And he's not played. And they lost. Because, well, I saw a bunch of people, the series is over. Of course he wasn't going to play. Simmons is either injured, is alternately injured, or so mentally fragile and thin-skinned and sensitive, just all the words. Like, this guy, you rub up against him, his back's gonna break, or his foot's gonna break, his back's going to snap, and his feelings are going to be so destroyed that when you turn back around, he's just going to be a pile of ashes on the floor. I mean, Ben Simmons is pathetic. Like, I don't know if there's a bigger joke of an NBA player at this point than Ben Simmons. Just an utter disappointment. And he's hurting players around the league. Because now owners are going to be able to point to, look, are you, people are going to float. It's like when players start, getting upset, it's like, well, I guess are they going to pull a Ben Simmons? And no one's going to never go full Ben Simmons. I think next time there are negotiations on the CBA, I think there's going to be a big push for owners we got really lax and we got superstar friendly, player friendly, and y'all took advantage of it. Like Ben Simmons, James Harden really abused it, and I think it's going to be bad for the players moving forward, because the teams are going to have this as leverage, and they should exercise it as far as I'm concerned. Because that's one thing that I do have a problem with. I don't have a problem with players asking for a bigger part of share of the revenue, what have you, or other things, insurance benefits, retirement benefits, whatever. I'm fine with that because it's labor negotiations. What I do have a problem with is people, you want to get, it's like these guys get fully guaranteed contracts. This isn't like the NFL. If you want fully guaranteed money, You got to be fully guaranteed that you are wanting to play and that if you are healthy, you're going to play. And Ben Simmons sat out most of the season because he used mental health. He didn't want to play for Philly anymore. He was pissed off at Philly's fans. He was pissed off at Doc Rivers, Joel Embiid, the fans. That's it. His mental health, you know what? He might actually have a mental health problem. It's called narcissism. A toxic level of selfishness. That's his issue. And then back soreness, back issue. It's like, yeah, you want to know why? Probably because instead of upkeeping his body correctly, bet you he didn't. It's like I bet you he didn't do that during all that time. But I don't know. This guy literally didn't play at all this year and is getting a max salary. This guy made like, I'm trying to remember what his max salary was, but this guy made like over $25 million this year. Maybe over $30 million this year. And he did nothing. He did literally nothing. But, you know, that's, for some people, it's Steve Nash's fault that Harden was a piece of crap. Durant missed time during the season with a significant amount of time with injury. That New York City's laws cost them Kyrie Irving. People can say whatever they want about Kyrie Irving's choices. I'm going to blame government overreach over individual choices in that case. In this case. You can disagree with that. That's fine. But I think Kyrie Irving, you know, if you're going to celebrate players kneeling for social injustice, you should also celebrate Kyrie Irving for standing up for individual rights. That's my take on it. Because that's what supposedly that's what the kneeling thing was about, from what people who were proponents of it said. That's what I'm saying about Kyrie Irving's protest, but most of those people don't see it that way. And I mean, a myriad of other injuries. Joe Harris dealt with injuries. A bunch of people on the team dealt with injuries. You know, fringe players that they had. It seemed like their bigs, like none of them they couldn't get two of their bigs to be like consistently solid at the same time. I think part of that is they're not playing Nick Claxton enough. But you know, it sucks for Brooklyn fans, but I think Steve Nash needs to be back next year. I think Steve Nash is a good coach. I think he's going to turn out to be a really good player developer. They've got some really intriguing young guys on that roster. Cam Thomas being one of them, who I think is going to be a huge boon to them in the future as a scorer, shot creator. I mean, they've got Steph Curry. Seth Curry. They've got Seth Curry, who is one of the best shooters in the league. One of the best off-ball weapons in the league. Joe Harris will be healthy next year, who is, once again, one of the best shooters, off-ball weapons in the league. A lot of these younger guys that they're trying to develop will be a year older and more experienced. And hopefully and next year you're gonna have a full season of Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, health willing, particularly for Durant. And hopefully you'll have Ben Simmons. And the Ben Simmons, everybody thinks can be unlocked. But if you fire Steve Nash, I think you're doing yourself a disservice. I mean, some of the coaching, like rotating chairs at different places, like just confounds me, to be honest. Like Frank Vogel shouldn't have been fired in LA. That guy's probably one of the, well, I mean, this dude won a title with just LeBron and AD and a bunch of solid role players. The last 2 seasons aren't Vogel's fault at all. It's LeBron missing a quarter of the season or more. Anthony Davis missing half or more of the season. GM LeBron screwing up the roster by forcing management to make decisions they don't want to make because they had better ones in mind. This team was going to have DeMar DeRozan this year. And LeBron nixed it and told them to go get Russell Westbrook. And look at how that happened. And that's the truth. That is the truth. There is no lie to it. That's the truth. Everyone knows it. It's like, a lot of people have reported on it. And everyone knows it to be true. Because everyone knows at this point that LeBron James thinks he's a good GM, and he's not. He destroys every team that he goes to within 4 years. Miami. The roster around Bosh and Wade was dead when he left. Because he had them... He demoralized younger players, had them shipped out for 35-year-old vets who had like a year left in them. Or 2 years left in them. Battier was done. Ray Allen was done. I can't remember if Shawn Marion got brought in at the tail end of that. But, I mean, he was basically on the way out the door. I mean, as Haslam was... I mean, he's still on the team, but Haslam was in his 30s. And past it. Like, they had so many guys who were, barely hanging on to careers. And they didn't develop young talent because LeBron James isn't good at helping young players develop. He hurts them constantly. You look at Cleveland. They traded all that stuff for Timothy Mozgov. What was it, like 2 first-round picks for Timothy Mozgov? That worked out swimmingly. It's just dumbfounding. Not to mention, I get the Kevin Love deal, but... And to be fair, Andrew Wiggins wouldn't have become anything because LeBron James would have ruined him too if he'd been on the team. He would have... Honestly, Andrew Wiggins might be in worse shape now if he had ended up starting his career with LeBron. Because LeBron would have treated him like he did Mario Chalmers and Norris Cole and all those guys. Because they're going to... LeBron James makes young players second guess their every move because every time they make a decision it's wrong and they get berated for it instead of coached up about it. They get eye rolls and iced out. And that's not how you develop young players. It's just not. Any good coach will tell you that. Now, there are times where you pull someone out of games, but you do it to coach them up, not to bully them on national television. I mean, and he was so bad that Kyrie Irving didn't want to play with him anymore in Cleveland. Kevin Love didn't like being around LeBron. And look at Los Angeles. Look at all the people they've traded away from that team, by the way. Look at what Brandon Ingram is doing in New Orleans right now. Look at what Lonzo Ball has become. Among some other, pieces of that puzzle. But, they'd probably really like to have those guys right now instead of what they had this year. And they could have kept all those guys. They could have kept pretty much all those guys and signed Anthony Davis outright the next offseason. Sure, they wouldn't have won the title immediately, or that title that year. Well, heck, maybe they would have if LeBron had gone there and actually decided to nurture some people and grow with them. Well, I mean, and he was there with them for a year, but he was passive aggressive. He hated on them. He didn't value them. LeBron James didn't value them. And yeah, they did get a title. Because Anthony Davis is awesome. And Rob Pelinka did a really good job of putting together that team. And then last year, and then the year after, everybody thought the team got better. Everybody in the media talked about how the Lakers won the title and then got better in the offseason. And then there were a lot of injuries and a bunch of stuff. And then people questioned, like by the end of the season, people were questioning Pelinka's moves. It's like, everyone, like consensus, thought they won the offseason. It's like it was injuries. But the NBA ratings are soaring right now. I've ended up getting off on some stuff outside the playoffs, but the NBA's ratings are soaring. Like the Celtics Nets game 1 was like the most watched game 1 opening round like playoff game in like 20 years. It was insane. Like the ratings right now are the best it's been in, I'm trying to remember what it was, just like the overall average ratings for like all the games so far. Best we've been in like over 5 years. And LeBron and the Lakers are involved. It's crazy. It's kind of crazy. The Knicks not involved after everything that happened, or after they fell apart in year 2, which I kind of saw that coming. To be honest, I really looked at last year as a little bit fluky. They had a bunch of guys just play way above their usual and have outlier seasons, and I didn't love their off season. So yeah, but the Celtics are awesome. I want to touch on that before I move on from the Nets series. Celtics Nets. Jason Tatum is for real. I think he's cementing himself right now as a top 5 player. All of the people who have been talking about the Celtics need to trade Jaylen Brown for something else. There were a lot of people wanting them to try and trade Jaylen Brown to get like Damian Lillard was a name. Yeah. The Celtics were right to not do that, because at the end of the day, the archetype that Tatum and Brown, like their archetype is two-way wings who can guard 1 through 4, and can even defend some 5s depending on the action. Like they can switch across and play great defense. They can get you buckets from all three levels on offense. Like, they can get to the rim. They can hit you from mid-range and out of the post a bit, especially Tatum. And out of the mid-post, like, their mid-range games are good. And they can nail threes and nail them off the dribble and off of, like, screens. Like, they can play in the pick and roll. You get two of those guys. I mean, that's arguably why the Bucks won won last year, because they had Giannis, who's more of a power forward center version of it. But I mean, he's a wing. He's got wing skills on offense as well as a big's body and big skills. Like, Giannis is such a unicorn. But they also have Chris Middleton. Like, they have two-way, players who can run pick and roll. Antetokounmpo can't shoot from three like Middleton, Brown, and Tatum can, but this is a great roster. Marcus Smart put in probably I would say this is the best season of Marcus Smart's career. The switch in defense that they made, Ime Udoka, awesome, just awesome coaching job this year. Switching to that defensive scheme where they had Robert Williams sitting over and basically playing off of playing kind of a zone off of whoever the corner shooter was, basically the least dangerous player for the opposing offense, and allowing him to kind of rove and use his incredible quickness, length, and timing and instincts to help off the ball, to get to the, to defend the rim from that spot. It was just brilliant. The offense has been great. Bringing back Al Horford was absolutely a wise move. This Celtics team's really good, and if you looked at all the statistical models and the best predictors of championship success, they led pretty much everything over the Suns even. So I really, right now, my favorite to win this whole thing is the Celtics, and they were pretty much my favorite coming into the playoffs. In the other series, last time I checked, the Sixers were down to the Raptors. They lost Game 4. They were up 3-0. Let's see. So right now on ESPN.com. So that game must have gone final since I started. Right now, the Mavs are up 20 on Utah. 30 seconds from halftime, 52-32. Let's see here. Yep, the Raptors closed out a Game 5 win in Philly. So it is now 3-2, and they did this without Fred VanVleet. He was supposed to be out tonight with a hip injury. They won 103-88. And, the Nets were close on the Celtics. It was a 116-112 final. But they're gone. I think it's really interesting what's going on with Philly right now. They looked really good, really dominant. I was actually kind of surprised at how... I was a bit surprised that that Toronto wasn't faring better early in the series. But they're scrappy and they're well coached. It's unlikely that they win the next two games. Like, I would be, to be honest, I would be shocked if they won the next game. Because, well, actually, I think they go back to Toronto because it's like 2-2, 1-1-1. So they could force a Game 7 that would be in Philly. But, man, wouldn't that be something? I'm trying to decide which series to go to next. Mavs, the Mavs versus the Jazz. That series is tied 2-2. I feel like Dallas is gonna close this one out, playing really good tonight, and then I want to say they're on the road tonight because I think the Jazz were higher than them in the standings. The Jazz were the 4 seed, right? Or the yeah, the Jazz were the 4 seed. So I think Dallas will go home. Or if they hold on tonight, they'll go home. They'll go home game 6 and I think finish it. Two series is that are really interesting at the top of the West. The Suns Pelicans series is 2-2. Of course, they lost game 4. No Devin Booker. Booker's out. Chris Paul had a really rough game. The Pelicans played really well. This is a scrappy team. I think they nailed their coaching hire with Willie Green. And they're doing this without Zion. Like, they're playing this well without Zion. They started Jonas Valanciunas and Jackson Hayes with Herb Jones, Brandon Ingram, and CJ McCollum, which outside of McCollum, that is a giant starting lineup. And it worked. like, Joseph Valanciunas is a really good player. He's extremely underrated. He's a solid passer for a big man. His offensive skill set, like, he can shoot from outside, but the guy can play off the short roll. He's really good in the pick and roll, post ups, and he's become a solid defender. He's a beast of a rebounder, and he's always shot well from the free throw line for a big, which is a big plus. So kudos to the Pelicans. They're taking advantage of the scenario or the situation they're in right now. So that's cool. On the flip side, Grizzlies Timberwolves. I thought this was going to be a tougher series than some people thought because I thought the Wolves have been playing really good. Edwards has really taken a second-year leap. Towns has played or has had just some explosive games. He hadn't played amazing in this series until the Game 4 win. Well, he played pretty good in Game 1. The Game 4 win, he had like 33 though. Real bounce back game for him because he looked really bad in the Game 3 loss. But I think my Grizzlies are going to pull it out. I really hope so. But this is nail biter territory right now, and I'm not liking it. But I'm happy for Minnesota fans finally getting a quality team, a competitive team that has a very bright future. Because Edwards is only going to get better. And they've got some other young guys like McDaniels, who's improving leaps and bounds. Vanderbilt's a really great young role player. And Beasley, owning that bench gunner, basically kind of like the bench scorer role, which I think Beasley's a killer. I think his skill set's perfect for that. The other, what was the other West series? Oh yeah, and Warriors Nuggets. I think the Warriors are going to close that out in Game 5. Denver got a win at home. Jokic had an awesome game. Golden State was shooting was off. I think they'll bounce back on home court Game 5 and close it out. The other East series, Miami. I think Miami's going to finish off, or I think Yeah. Who's Miami playing again? I'm sorry. I forgot who ended up the 8th seed in the East. Like a dummy. I'm not seeing it down here. I'm sorry. So you got Bulls Bucks. We'll say that Bulls stole a game. I think the Bucks are going to close that one out in Game 5 tomorrow. Maybe up. Let me go to the NBA page. I know I don't have it pulled up on screen, but that's fine. At least for me it is. Let's just look at the schedule. Or has Miami already closed out their series with the Hawks? Did they finish off the Hawks? No. Oh, they're okay. Would that be okay? That's TBD. Are they really? Do they really not have their next game until like Thursday? No, there it is, Tuesday. I was skipping past it somehow. Okay, so yeah, so Miami could close that out tomorrow, and I think they're going to. They've been really good this year. Still, the Celtics are my favorite to win the whole thing. As much as I want my Grizzlies to, I just there's some things I just don't think we're there yet. I think our youth and energy helps us get some games during the regular season, but I think playoff basketball is proving to be a little bit different. And I think even if we get past Minnesota, our matchup is going to be Golden State. And if I'm picking a team out of the West right now, I'm picking Golden State. Because, I mean, if you were picking between the two, are you really going to pick Ja Morant over Steph Curry? As much as I love Ja, I don't know if I can pick Steph or him over Steph Curry. But let's just say they cancel each other out, whatever. So your number 2 options right now. Who would you rather have? Jordan Poole or Desmond Bane? To be honest, I'd probably lean Poole. Your third player. Who would you rather have? Klay Thompson? This version of Klay Thompson is, and by the way, Klay's shooting really well. Would you rather have Klay Thompson or Dylan Brooks? I'm taking Klay Thompson. Would you rather have Kyle Anderson or Andrew Wiggins? I think you're taking this version of Wiggins. Would you rather have Draymond Green or Jaren Jackson Jr.? And then, like, you look at the bench. Like, our bench has been really good. But I mean, I think it'll be a good series, but we've got to get past Minnesota first before I can even think about that. So, with that being said, I'm already 50 minutes in the show. Let's get into these positional rankings. You know, I wonder though if I could put my capture for maybe Microsoft Word or something. I could like type these up as we go. So that'd be a good way for y'all to follow kind of like what I'm doing. Should have experimented with that. But I had band practice for Beast Feast, which, hey, Beast Feast is Thursday night. We're indoors. You know, if you're in Southeast Texas and you're interested in outdoor stuff, come to Beast Feast. Jace and Missy Robertson are speaking. Speaking on just the importance of family today and the benefits it has for, well, not just you, but like your community and the world. I'm really excited about it. There's also going to be like really cool giveaways. There's going to be a bunch of crawfish, so you want to get that ticket, get that crawfish. Because I remember a couple years back, like that crawfish went fast, and there was tons of it. Like I couldn't believe how fast that stuff went. But it's gonna be a good time. I'm part of the band for it, so it's gonna be really fun. But that is Thursday at Ford Park here in Beaumont, Texas. 6 o'clock is when things are kicking off. You can find your tickets at, well, best way to search it is Beast Feast 2022. Probably put in Beaumont, or Ford Park, and into Google, and you'll find it. Let me see. I'm looking for my. Oh, where is it? Oh, there it is. Window capture. Sorry, I'm looking at some options here. So I bet if I wanted to, I could do that. I'm not going to do that. That probably would just be distracting. So anyway, let's get into these position rankings for the draft. I'm going to try and be pretty quick. Cat, quiet. I can't make the rain go away. He'll walk over the door, especially when it's raining, and he'll look at me, and he'll just be like, meow, meow, meow. I'm like, I can't make the rain go away. So, anyway, quarterback. So, I've got a new addition, a new player that I've been scrounging up tape on that I'll get to in these rankings. So I've moved things around a few different times, but I settled on this for my final ranking. Sam Howell is my number one quarterback. Sam Howell, North Carolina. The guy has the best deep ball in the draft, I'd argue. It's him or Carson Strong, as far as I'm concerned. Howell's got amazing arm talent. He's proved this year that he's an incredible running threat. He actually forced, I think it was like 65 or 66 missed tackles this season, forced missed tackles, which were the most by a ACC quarterback since 2014 in a single season. Note, that includes, during that time, that is every season that Lamar Jackson started at Louisville, including his Heisman season. Which, part of that is Lamar Jackson was so fast that, guys couldn't get to the position to, have a forced missed tackle. But, I mean, Sam Howell is really good. I want to say 2014 was Deshaun Watson's first season as a starter at Clemson. So, some really good athletes at quarterback have come through the ACC during that time. Now, Sam Howell did run a lot of RPOs this season. Those were not as big. I mean, they were part of the offense in previous years, but not as big a part. And him running the ball definitely wasn't. He had over 800 yards rushing this year. And I'm trying to remember. I think it was was it 7 rushing touchdowns? It might have been more rushing touchdowns than that. But either way, he was top 7 in the conference in both rushing yards and rushing touchdowns, which really impressive. His deep ball's great. He has some things he needs to work on. His accuracy in the intermediate areas of the field needs improvement. His anticipatory throwing is not great, but part of that's because of the offense he was in. That was not something they really developed. I think it can get there for him because and the reason I say that is I think he has really good instincts. He needs to work on some of his mechanics. That stuff gets fixed at the NFL level all the time. Patrick Mahomes' mechanics have come along. Josh Allen's mechanics have come a long way since coming to the league. Most quarterbacks improve their mechanics coming to the league. It just happens. It's something that a lot of quarterbacks have to go through. So I'm not worried about that. I think Howell has the highest ceiling of any quarterback in this class because, as far as I'm concerned, I think he's got the best. I think his traits are as good as any quarterback in this draft, and as good as Malik Willis. And I think he's got less major hurdles than Willis, in my opinion. So Howell's my number one guy. Like, coming into this year, he was the number one quarterback. And turns out when you take away when you take away, like, a guy's 3 top receivers, his 2 top running backs, and the offensive line play gets worse, and you strip down the offensive scheme because of the other players around him needing things simplified for him, he had to adjust, and he did. He did a masterful job adjusting and showing us dimensions to his game that he did not have, people did not see or didn't know he had yet, especially that running ability. He is a dangerous runner, and he's a physical runner, and he's a quick runner. And he's really good at improvising and making plays on the run. He's one of the better quarterbacks I've ever seen in that regard. And he did so against a higher level of competition than, the other 2 quarterbacks that have, the same or kind of equal physical upside. My number 2 quarterback is Kenny Pickett. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit of dry mouth in the back. Kenny Pickett had the best tape of any quarterback this year from a throwing the ball perspective, and he's more athletic than he gets credit for. He's got some wheels. The way I'd put it is his pocket ability. He's got Mac Jones's pocket sense, in my opinion. Like, some people say he doesn't sense pressure well. I actually think Pickett senses pressure pretty freaking well. He just has a Patrick Mahomesian tendency to bail out of clean pockets early. Usually, though, it's because he's trying to create throwing lanes. And some of it's because he wasn't used to having the kind of time that he was afforded a lot of times this year. He had dealt with some pretty bad offensive line play, or especially from the tackle positions during his time at Pittsburgh. This year was the best offensive line he's played behind. That drifting and leaving like clean pockets, that can be coached up because Patrick Mahomes has gotten better about that. And his tape from going into the 2017 draft, that was like the biggest takeaway for a lot of scouts. Was like, this guy just doesn't stay in the pocket. Like he bails too often, too early. The problem was, and he had sloppy mechanics and all this other stuff. Here's the crazy part. As Todd McShay put it, there are all these red flags, but despite all of those, he got good results over and over and over and over and over again. It's like, if he's doing that well with this, if we can improve any of these facets of his game, he could be incredible. And he's literally improved every single one of his issues. He's improved on everything. So Kenny Pickett doesn't have the physical, like the arm talent of a Mahomes or even Howell. But he's got, he has good arm strength. Like he's solid. And his ability to throw with accuracy on the run is really impressive. Like his ability to throw on the move. One of the more recent quarterbacks I can say did this at a similar level was Baker Mayfield. That was one of Baker Mayfield's biggest strengths. Now, Mayfield was good from the pocket. So is Kenny Pickett. They were both great inside the pocket and outside the pocket. I think Mayfield has a little more zip on his throws. I think Pickett does a little bit better with touch. But now Pickett has some interesting misses, but sometimes that's because he got a little lazy with his mechanics or his process on the throw. Pickett's extremely good. He made massive strides last year. And from all accounts, I think he's going to be the first quarterback off the board. There's a lot less. There was buzz for a while about the quarterbacks. That was a bunch of non-quarterback teams talking about quarterback-needy teams. Because basically right now, all the teams that don't need quarterbacks or don't want quarterbacks, they're wanting them drafted early. Because that means better players are going to fall to them at their picks in the first round. Teams like the Eagles, the Chargers, New England, Arizona, Oakland, like all those teams in like the early 20s. And I'd argue the Saints this year. I don't think the Saints are going after a quarterback. All those teams are wanting, people trading up. They're wanting Pittsburgh to trade up for a quarterback. There's a lot of buzz that Pittsburgh wants to take a tackle at 20. Well, you better be hoping Penning's there then, because after that, there's not a first-round tackle, in my opinion. So, now there are some interior guys that are worth that the draft slot, but I don't think they're going to draft one that early, personally. So, with that being said, I need to be quicker. Howell, Pickett, Ritter is my number 3. Ritter's got great physical tools. He and Pickett have the most starting experience. Although I think Ritter has he and Howell have the most high level or like quality starting experience, because Pickett up until this year had been really kind of meh. Pickett had that Joe Burrow, like last year Joe Burrow jump. And one thing to say with Pickett is this was like Pickett's 6th year technically in college. I mean, I think he's going to be 24 by the start of the season. Because like he was a year older than Burrow was coming out, and Burrow was a 5th-year senior. So, Ritter's got a lot of experience too, but like 4-year starter, lots of wins. He has some of those inexplicable Jimmy Garoppolo, like, how did you miss that throw? Misses. But he's way more athletic than Garoppolo. He's got really good arm talent. Not great, but really good. Like, he has some deep throws that are just awesome. He had a throw, I'm trying to remember what team it was, but he you know, he backpedals to the left out of the pocket and fires this just perfect rope. I mean, it was just like a perfect spear throw down the field to a receiver on the post. I think it was Alec Pierce, which Pierce showed up a lot on his tape. We'll talk about him later in this awesome receiver class. Ritter's really good. I hear that my Titans are huge fans of Ritter. I'd be cool with it. There's a lot of Ritter says he really respects Tannehill. He sees a lot of similarities between the two. I think Ritter's a better quarterback prospect than Tannehill was. He's definitely got more experience than Tannehill did coming out of college. So, but Tannehill played. He was a starting receiver before converting to and their backup quarterback, and then took over after the starter. Was it Gerard Johnson? When he graduated, Tannehill stepped in and played really well his one season as a starting quarterback. Ended up 8th overall in Miami. I think Ritter's a better prospect than that. Or than Tannehill was. So after that, I've got Malik Willis. Willis has an extremely high upside. I think there's an argument to be made that his upside is probably the highest of any of these quarterbacks. But I think it's going to be harder for him to get there. I think if we're talking about where they are and the likelihood of them reaching their potential, I just think Sam Howell's a little more likely. And Sam Howell played against a tougher level of competition. And Willis has this, Howell will throw over the middle of the field. Willis does not like to throw over the middle of the field. I've talked about it on the channel before. Missing wide open touchdowns. Talking no one within 15 yards of the receiver. He'll get the ball there and no one will be within, 10 yards of him. 5 yards of him. And by the time the guys got the ball, secured it, and, celebrating. And we'll look at the guy and won't pull the trigger. It's really bizarre. And it's not like, oh, this guy's just starting to break up. The guy was, one of these, the guy was so wide open, you could have thrown the pass. But in the open field, he is dangerous. I will say there's an idiot named Pete Rizzo. I think that's it. Pete Rizzo I think it's CBS Sports, called him a running back, not a quarterback. It's first read or tuck and run, and it's tuck and run, not roll out with your eyes downfield. And that is true. That is true of his tape. He's still not a running back because a running back's not even going to make a read. Let's be fair. Malik Willis is extremely coachable. He's a great guy to have on your team from a character standpoint. He's outstanding, humble, and extremely generous. You root for the guy. Like me dropping him, I don't want Malik Willis to fail. I just think I'm just not as high on him. I hear people trying to compare him to Lamar Jackson. He's not Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson was better, and he was better in a much tougher conference. Willis is great at throwing out routes. That's a really tough throw. Guess what? That is a small portion of your offense. If you can't make multi-level reads, if you can't attack the middle of the field confidently, or ever at all, you're limiting your offense. And some people have said maybe it's Hugh Freeze's offense. I'm not 100% convinced of that. There are some things where, like, sure, but I think some of what Freeze was doing was because of Willis's tendencies. Although, I don't understand what Hugh Freeze's obsession was with all curls plays, like just running 4 wide receivers all on curl routes. It was bizarre how often that came up on tape. I will say that. So, but he also he has moments on tape where he rolls out and he directs some traffic and he makes a play, throwing the ball downfield. But for the most part, it's first read's not there and he tucks and he goes. And what's crazy is his rushing numbers this year weren't that much, or really weren't that much different from Sam Howell. And Howell played in a tougher conference. And isn't the athlete Malik Willis is. So, but I couldn't drop Willis lower than 4th. I've got Matt Corral 5th. There are things I like about Corral's game. I've softened a little bit on the arm strength concerns, but he did play in a heavy run PO heavy offense. Like 36% of their snaps were run pass options at Ole Miss, and that might just be 36% of his pass attempts. Now that doesn't mean that's still 2/3 of the offense is still not that, but there are a lot of NFL concept type things that he wasn't doing at Ole Miss, but when they did those things, he showed the ability to get through multiple progressions, especially this past season. Now, I think his touchdown interception ratio paints a better picture of his, decision making than reality. He had a lot of interceptable passes not intercepted. He made some dangerous decisions that ended up that last year maybe an inordinate amount got picked off. I still have some ball security issues with him, but he's tough as nails. He's athletic. He'll, you can run designed runs with him. And actually, you could do that with all of the top 5 QBs. Even Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett can keep the ball on RPOs and do some QB draws, and even, I would say on occasion, run like a QB counter type deal for you. He's not as athletic as the other guys, but if we saw in the AC Championship game against Wake Forest, he's actually got some pretty good wheels. And then 6 is Carson Strong, and that's only because of the knee. I'd probably put him higher. I really love his tape, and sure it was the Mountain West, but he played good in their games against non-Mountain West teams. He won them the game against Cal this year. And this guy, he was awesome as a junior. His junior tape is I would say, is better than his senior tape. But when you put his senior tape into context with the knee issue and playing on a half rehab knee, man, what he was doing on pretty much one leg was pretty crazy. His arm talent, I'd argue I said Sam Howell, Sam Howell and Willis are at the top. Strong's right there, and a healthy Carson Strong might have the best arm talent in this draft at quarterback. After that, this is going to be quick. Bailey Zapp is number 7. Matt Miller of ESPN talked about, I think it was Miller, not Reed, talked about how the biggest thing he looks for quarterbacks is the catchability of their passes. How easy is it for receivers to catch their passes? And he said he loved Bailey Zapp because, and this shows up on tape, Zapp may not have the arm talent of some of these other guys. His ball placement and touch on deep balls is really stinking good. He actually there's a lot of Gardner Minshew to Zapp's game. He's not as athletic. He's not as mobile as Minshew. But a lot of the rest of his game is very Minshew-esque. you're looking at a guy who has the ability to potentially become a starter. Because here's the thing, don't think Minshew's starter career is over yet. I don't believe that for a second. All he needs to be on a team with where an injury issue pops up. And that could happen in Philly this year with Jalen Hurts. Especially with how much this team relies on Hurts in the run game and his mobility. I think Zap has the potential to kind of be a Case Keenum, Gardner Minshew type quarterback, and maybe even better, but that's where I see kind of his high end. So he is a very much a draftable guy. He could go round 3, but I'm gonna say he goes on day 3. I have a new quarterback 8. That has been Dustin Crum for me for a while. I'm moving Crum down to 9. Cole Johnson of James Madison, FCS quarterback. Last year, just short of 3,800 passing yards, 41 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 68% completion percentage. He was awesome. He's got a little bit of a long throwing motion. He's 6'5", 215. He's a little skinny, but he was at the FCS level, but at one of the best programs in the FCS. He needs to work on his mechanics. He needs to work on getting through his progressions better at times. Some people question some of his decision making. I think that's a little overblown. We'll see. But, I mean, he will definitely have to adjust to the NFL level. But as a developmental quarterback, guy's got great touch. His arm talent's not as good as, he doesn't have Carson Strong, Sam Howell arm talent. But I'd say it's probably better than Pickett's from a, zip perspective. I think he's got potential. After that, Dustin Crum out of Kent State. I think he's a really solid all-around quarterback. Doesn't have amazing arm strength or anything, but he's done a good job of protecting the ball in his career. He can play the RPO game. He can hurt teams with his legs, extend plays. There's a lot to like about Dustin Crum's game, but he's probably a career backup type. But I think he's a smart quarterback. I think he can. I think he's a guy, and he's a guy I wouldn't be shocked has a long career as a backup and a veteran mentor to young quarterbacks. My QB 10 is Cole Kelly of Southeast Louisiana State. Was it? Not Southeast Louisiana. Is it Southwest Arkansas? It's one of these directional schools in either Arkansas or Louisiana. I keep forgetting the name of the school, which is terrible. But he's 6'7", 250. He's got a cannon for an arm, and he can move. He's not one of these Brock Osweiler types. He's not Josh Allen athletic, but he's not stupid far off. He's a tank who can get rolling. He's super raw, but he's one of those developmental types. Or if you want to try and develop a backup, if you were Buffalo and you were trying to make a dollar store version of Josh Allen, Cole Kelly's your guy. After that, just some other guys who could be drafted or undrafted free agents. My number 11 is Caleb Ellaby out of Western Michigan. You could call him Matt Corral, or you could call him the Great Value brand of Matt Corral. The offenses were very similar. If you look at the play style for their offense and the breakdowns of RPOs versus non-RPOs, and if you look at their stats on non-RPO throws, they're practically identical, except Kelly had more touchdowns. This year. So and I think more interceptions too, but more touchdowns. I think it was like for Corral, it was like 12-2, and Ellaby it was like 16-4. Anyway, Caleb Ellaby, number 12. Brock Purdy, 13 is EJ Perry of Brown University. 14 is Chase Gabbers of Cal. I've dropped him a decent bit here. I went back over his tape. Like, there were things I liked, but I don't know. All these guys are kind of fluid anyway. Because I want to say I'd had Gabbers at like 9 or 10. But, I mean, all these guys are really close. But and some of those guys I'd not gotten through other guys' tape yet either. So, Jack Cohn after that. I'm trying to think of some of the other guys. I think Tanner Morgan of Minnesota's in this draft finally. He'd be around. He's in this area. Anthony Brown in Oregon. I might have already mentioned him just a second ago. I'm trying to think of some of these guys, or a couple more of these guys off the top of my head, but they're more undrafted types. From there, we're gonna go to the running backs. Actually, my cat is driving me nuts. I'll be right back. Cat, it's raining. You don't want to go out there. Sorry, my cat had to see that it was raining outside. Man, this is going to take forever. As long as I just spent on the quarterbacks. I might not get through all the offense. This might take I might have to do stream Wednesday and one early Thursday before I have to go for Beast Feast to get through offense and defense. This might take 4 days. Okay, running backs. So, and I probably should have put these kind of in tiers. So I'm going to do this for the running backs. So there's a clear like tier 1 for me. It's Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker. Breece Hall of Iowa State, Kenneth Walker out of Michigan State. These guys are awesome. Breece Hall is the best all-around running back in the draft, period. Walker might be a little bit more explosive as a runner, but he doesn't give you near as much in the pass game. But those are easily your top 2 running backs. Then there's a big second tier for me. These are guys I believe are either 3-down capable. Some of those maybe just because, or more for pass blocking than receiving, but these are guys I think can be your lead running back and be extremely productive. So I've got my number 3. I have Ty Chandler at number 3, which I believe is higher than most people. But, all these guys in this tier are pretty close, especially the first few guys. Dude, 4.38 speed. This guy was really productive in the SEC at Tennessee. He came on strong for North Carolina once they started, or once that offense started humming. He won them the Wake Forest game. Like, his second half, and particularly that fourth quarter, it's just crazy. And he's a really good receiver, tough receiver out of the backfield. Like, this guy will make contested catches. He will catch balls where he knows he's going to get hit immediately. Does not care. He'll make the catch. He's decisive as a runner. He's patient. There's a lot to like about Ty Chandler. I'm a little biased. He was he was a Tennessee guy before he transferred to North Carolina. Love him as a player. But I truly believe with the measurables on top of his tape, he's number 3. Number 4 for me is, and I've kept edging him forward up the list, Pierre Strong Jr. out of South Dakota State. This guy ran for 1,686 yards in the FCS last year. I keep trying to remember how many touchdowns he got, but he was, he was a first-team All-American for the FCS division. I believe he was the Missouri Valley Conference Player of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year, I think, if I remember correctly. He's awesome. He had a 4.37 40. This guy has really good vision. He's a strong runner. But this guy has gas. He's got big playability, and he showed he didn't do a lot as a receiver in college because of the offense he was in. During the East-West Shrine Bowl workouts, drills, and at the Combine, he showed he can catch the ball. Like, I think that's a dimension of his game that will be expanded at the NFL level. But he's a home run hitter. And I like home run hitters at the running back position. My number 5 running back is Zamir White out of Georgia. I think he's got great pop in his pads when he runs. He's one of the bigger backs, 6 foot, like I want to say like 218, 219. He had 4.41 speed. I think he's still developing as a player. He's not the shiftiest guy, but he will break arm tackles. He'll run through some people, and once he gets by people, he's got the speed to take it a distance, which is why he's at 5. And another guy that we'll talk to later who was up, he was number 3 for a lot of people most of the season, is kind of further down the list. The one knock is he's not as good of a receiver, but he can catch some passes out of the backfield. That's something he can improve on. And based on his build, he should hold up pretty well in pass protection, and I've seen him do some pass pro at Georgia. If he gets a little better at that, he can be a 3-down back for that reason. Number 6 for me, and I keep raising him up as well, is Dameon Pierce out of Florida. Dude's a bowling ball. He's got great quick feet. He's not the fastest running back, but he's good at playing running back. Like, he creates yards. He's great at making the second guy miss, not just the first. And he's really hard to tackle. He's great at the goal line, and he's the second best pass protecting running back in the draft. You know what? Oh, dude, 6. He's at 7 because my best pass protecting running back's at 6. I'm sorry. So, like I said, in Tier 2, you got Chandler, who's the 3rd ranked running back. Pierre Strong at 4. 5 is Zamir White. 6 is Brian Robinson. And I thought about having him at 5, but I think White has a lot of potential. Robinson's big. He's strong. He's one of the best power back. He's arguably the best power back in the draft. I'd say that's between him and White. But he's got really good hands out of the backfield, and he's easily the best pass protector in the draft at running back. Like, he just stonewalls linebackers and erases defensive backs. Robinson's really good. He's really strong, really stout. He's going to be a solid professional. So I've got him 6. Dameon Pierce is 7. I really like Pierce. Keontae Ingram out of USC is my number 8 running back. Over 220. Another running back. Really quick feet. Accelerates really quickly. maybe not as, it doesn't have the top end speed of some of the other running backs, but he's got good hands out of the backfield. He can use some work. Every college running back needs work in pass pro, but he's got more to work with than a lot of the other running backs in this draft. Really like Ingram. 9 is Isaiah Spiller out of Texas A&M. He shows more speed in game, but he's not like the quickest runner. He's not the fastest runner. He's solid pass catcher. Like, he can do everything. There's nothing he's great at. He's not super shifty. He's got some power to him. But he's solid. You know, if you're drafting him out, or if you draft him in the 3rd round, I'm cool with it. You know. But now we're getting into the kind of guys where it's like, you know, probably going on day 3. And number 10, wish I had a list of all the running backs in the class right now in front of me. That would make this easier, because I'm trying to talk about a lot of guys really quickly. Let me see here. I'm going to... Let me see if this is what I'm looking for. Nope. Dadgummit. Okay. Let's see. I think... Dadgummit, that is not the thing I wanted. I love when okay. For some reason, I type in him and it gives me this other thing instead of his rankings. Okay. So I'm going to go to position rankings. I'm going to skip his quarterback stuff. Let's see. Well, I want to see who he had. Yeah, because he only went 12 deep with his. Which I'm not going off his. I'm not going to bring him up because I don't want his stuff to confuse people. But anyway, so I had Hall, Walker, Chandler, Strong, White, Zamir White out of Georgia, Brian Robinson out of Alabama, Damian Pierce out of Florida. Number 8 was dadgummit. Keontae Ingram out of USC. My number 9 running back was Isaiah Spiller. And then number 10 is Jerome Ford out of Cincinnati. I think he's another really good, solid 3-down. He can do everything running back. After that, we're getting into Tier 3. So Tier 3 is your half of a committee back, is the way I would put it. My top 2 guys are 3rd down guys. I've dropped James Cook down a lot lower. And it's not that he couldn't get drafted ahead of some of these other guys, but Cook he's a receiving back. He's not, maybe he could put on some weight, but he's 6 foot, 199 pounds. He's kind of slight. He's not as shifty as you would think. But he's great as a receiver. You can motion him out of the backfield. For being slight, he's solid in pass pro for his size. I really like Cook, but I think he needs to put on some weight, especially in the lower body. Like, I think he needs to build up some more strength, some more power. Number 12 is Tyler Beatty out of Mizzou. He's a small guy, and he's only like 3 or 4 pounds, 5 pounds lighter than Cook, but he's like 4 inches shorter. I think he's like 5'8", like 194. He's got a thicker build, but I just don't think he can hold up to a lot of carries. But he's a really good receiving back, really quick, great change of direction. Then you've got number 11, or number 11, 12. Number 13 for me is Abram Smith out of Baylor. He's got real power, real explosiveness after contact, but he's a very straight line guy. He's not making people miss. Number 14 is Rachaad White. Now, White out of this group might be the most... His receiving stuff is really good. Like, he's arguably the best... He might arguably be the best pass-catching back in the draft. To me, it's between him, James Cook, and Breece Hall. White's really good in that regard. Some people believe he's a little bit better athlete than his testing scores, like he's a little more explosive. I don't know. I've kind of moved White up and down, but I've settled on 14 below Abram Smith. But White, out of all the guys in this group, might be the closest thing to I would say, size-wise and skill-wise, he's really the only, or he's the best of potential 3-down guys out of this group. 15 for me. 15 for me is a really high upside guy. He's going to be really low on a lot of other people's lists, but it's Zaquandre White out of South Carolina. 6 foot, 206, really fast and explosive. He didn't get a lot of carries on tape because he was behind some more established guys like his teammate, his teammate Kevin Harris was the lead back there. But I'm a big fan of him, or I'm a big fan of White. I think he's the highest upside guy down this low. And he's just really raw. Like, he could turn into a 3rd-down guy, but he's got to develop skills. 16, I'm going with Devontae Price out of Florida International. He was one of the best group of 5 players. He's one of the best group of 5 players in the draft among the running backs after Jerome Ford. Number 17, I've got Tyler Goodson. Number 18 is Tyler Algier out of BYU. Goodson's out of Iowa. Algier is not fast, but he's got great vision, power. He's a bully back, and he also pass protects really well, which is important at this level. 19, I've got Max Borghi, who's a really, really good pass-catching running back. Number 20 is Isaiah Pacheco. Or Isaiah Pacheco. Is that a mistype on this list? Who also super high upside, 4.37 40. But he's really raw. And then just kind of my next 10 guys, I'm not going to talk too much about them. Kennedy Brooks, 21. Hassan Haskins, 22. Harris from South Carolina, 23. Ty Davis Price, 24. Kyron Williams, 25. I will say, Kyron Williams, he's just so small, and then his 40 and his testing numbers just were not good. And that is just, he's got one of the worst speed scores I've ever seen. That's usually not good for a running back. 26 is C.J. Verdell. 27, Jalen Warren out of Oklahoma State. 29, Jerry Ely out of Ole Miss. Jashawn Corbin out of Florida State is number 30 for me. And then Sasir McCormick of UTSA. I love him, but he's slight. His testing numbers weren't great. I don't think he can carry the load at the next level that he did at UTSA. He's 31. I'm trying to think of a couple other guys. Snoop Connor at Ole Miss, 32. And I think that's basically everyone I think could get drafted. Maybe Letty Brown out of West Virginia, 33. That's a lot of players to rank. Then we go to wide receiver. Yeah, instead of doing top 10s, I'm like just ranking pretty much everybody who could be drafted. We're going to do wide receiver, and then I'm going to do tight ends and offensive line tomorrow, I think. I'm sorry. Man, allergies are bad. So, my number one, I know I'm looking at a list instead of looking at you beautiful people here, but I'm having trouble remembering a lot of people. So, number one, which the top is easy. It's once I'm getting farther down, trying to remember names and orders that I've come up with. I should have written this down, but I didn't. This is what happens when you got too many balls you're juggling at once. Number one receiver for me is still Jamison Williams. I don't care about the injury. The guy's the best player. Is the best offensive skill position player in the draft, period. He's fast. He's got length. He's lean. He's 6'2", like 181 or 185, something like that. Maybe 190, but he's 6'2". I think it's like 6'2", like 180 something. He's got great length, but he's one of the fastest players in the draft. He's one of the smoothest players in the draft. He's electric in the open field. He's like a taller, longer Tyreek Hill. That's the best way you can put it. And his speed on tape, he makes fast players look slow. And he's a really good route runner. You could, wish for maybe his hands to be a little stronger. But the guy's a playmaker. And I think he's, personally, if I was picking between him and Jalen Waddle, I'd pick him over Jalen Waddle. So he's my number one. Number two is Garrett Wilson. Dude is really solid. He surprised a lot of people by running a 4.38 40 at the combine, 4.38 or 4.39 40 at the combine, because he doesn't really play necessarily that fast on tape. There are times where it looks like he's that fast, but he's just so smooth. He's a technician, and I think he's got a really high floor. I don't look at him as a bust. He's very much in that Justin Jefferson, who's the other guy I'm looking for? Justin Jefferson, Jerry Jeudy, route technician, really good athleticism, just plays smooth. Like, I think Wilson's great. Number three for me, now this one, I'm way higher on him than a lot of other people, and he might be my favorite overall prospect in the draft, and it's Christian Watson out of North Dakota State. I've talked about him a lot. 6'5", 210, 4.3 speed. He's got a 39.5-inch vertical. He's extremely smooth on tape in a very run-heavy offense with iffy quarterback play at North Dakota State this last year. Fell just short of 1,000 yards. I don't care about that as much as other people. You got to look at situation, period. Once again, he had a few drops in college. I think some of that can be cleaned up. Some of that is, guys not throwing the most catchable balls. Like, getting a ball there and it being catchable is not exactly the same thing. And he made some circus catches, I think, and the speed shows on tape. Like, he just blows away from people, and it looks easy. It doesn't look like he's putting everything into every stride, and he's running away from people. Like, he coasts and keeps people at, like when he's got distance on guys, it's almost like he knows what speed they're running at, and he just coasts at the same speed. Once he's like got the ball in his hands, he's past me. Like I mean, he's got easy speed. So he's my number 3. Number 4, this one is toggled back and forth because I've got 3 guys that are all kind of vying in the same area. And I decided to go with Treylon Burks because I think his physical ability, his physical tools, if harnessed, he's got the highest upside of these 3 guys. Big, faster than his 40 time. This guy ran away from Alabama defenders, Alabama defensive backs and linebackers who ran faster 40 times than he did. Guys who ran in the 4.4s, low 4.4s. And Burks ran, what, a 4.55, 4.53 maybe. Maybe a 4.55. He ran away from them. He's big, physical. He reminds me a lot of Brandon Marshall, but faster. Maybe, I think it's a lot to say this as a comp, but physically speaking, very reminiscent of a Terrell Owens type receiver. I think he's got immense upside. Number 5, I went with Chris Olave because he's a little bit taller, a little bit thicker, ran a faster 40 than Jahan Dotson. But this one was really close because I love Dotson. And I think, like, if it was me, I'd probably pick Dotson over Olave, but just from a traits and standpoint, among other things, I just felt like Olave checked, like, another or one. He just came up a little more in my evaluation process. I wanted Dotson to finish ahead of Olave, and I couldn't do it. So Olave's 5, Dotson 6. George Pickens comes in at 7 for me. That one's really easy for me. Which is funny. Like, a lot of people are like, where's Drake London? The more I watch Pickens tape, I'm like, this guy reminds me of AJ Green. Like, to be honest. And maybe a little faster than AJ Green. He's just really smooth. When he's been healthy, he has some just dominant tape. Number 8 is Drake London. I had London a lot higher than this, but he didn't run a 40. I have concerns about his overall top speed because that, I think, limits his ceiling. Because I'm trying to figure out, is this guy Mike Evans? Because if so, if you think London is the next Mike Evans, and I'd say he's got quicker feet than Evans, but he's got a lot of the same tools, it's top 10 receiver pick, like a top 10 pick. Or is he Vincent Jackson? Which Vincent Jackson probably warrants maybe top 10 consideration, at least top 20. Or is he something less than that? And I do have some concerns about that. But most of this is just I like these other receivers better, to be quite frank. And I think maybe they're a little bit safer. I just worry about his top end speed. He's got quick feet. He creates separation, but like, you know, you can get big slot types, you know, cheaper, or like, why wouldn't I just go with a matchup tight end? I don't know. Like, London's really hard for me because I think there's a huge range of outcomes. Like, because there are some people who are worried that maybe he's J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. I don't think so. I mean, I didn't have Whiteside rated as high as he went and as high as some other people. I think London's a much better player. But there is worry. Like, there are people like Izzy and Keel Harry. Like, yeah, he creates separation at the college level. Will he do it at the pro level? Well, Harry didn't even create separation at the college level. So I might be crazy and I might ought to have London higher. But I just recently dropped him below Pickens. So he's 8 for me. 9 is Sky Moore. 10 is Alec Pierce out of Cincinnati. Pierce has such good physical tools. I just couldn't leave him out of my top 10. John Mechie, and that's kind of like, if I was going to put these guys in tiers, the tier 1 guys would be, Williams, Wilson, and Watson for me. Because I think all of those guys, just have... Well, for Wilson, I just think he's super safe, but I think he's got great potential on top of that. Williams and Watson just have immense upside. Watson has the best upside of just about any receiver prospect ever. This guy has, imagine if someone took Randy Moss but made him his physical frame more like Brandon Marshall. He's taller and longer. Watson's taller and longer than Moss, and a little bit thicker. He's stronger than Moss, and he'll block in the run game. Tier 2 then is Burks, Olave, Dotson, Pickens, London, and I would say Moore, because I think Moore could go in the first round. Then the next tier starts at Pierce at 10. I think he's really high upside. I got Mechie at 11. I think Mechie's just going to be really solid. I think he's got more upside than some people give him credit for. 12 for me is Velus Jones. Velus Jones out of Tennessee. He's so fast. He's 6'1", 204. He's got a power running back's build. But he's strong. He's physical. He can be a great gadget player, but he's got more... I think he'll hold up pretty well against the press. He's got more deep ability than a lot of the other receivers in the class, or some of the other receivers that can do the kind of gadget stuff and run game stuff, jet sweeps and all that kind of stuff, and be dangerous off screens. 13 is Calvin... 13 and 14, it's basically a tie. It's Calvin Austin out of Memphis and Wan'Dale Robinson out of Kentucky. I keep flip-flopping between the two because Austin's better at playing outside than Robinson and beating the press, but Robinson's a little thicker built. And a little more powerful. And had... really great production against a harder slate of defenses. So there's 13 and 14 for me. 15 is Kyle Phillips, because Phillips is I think he's the most like Hunter Renfrow in this draft. I think he's going to be a really solid pro, really productive. 16 is Jalen Tolbert from South Alabama. He's a physical, strong receiver. I really like him a lot. Let's see. 17 is... This one, some people might consider a little bit of a reach, but I don't care. I'm going with Bo Melton at 17. There's a lot of Terry McLaurin to Bo Melton. He ran like a 4.34, 4.35, 40, 5'11", 190, but he's got good length. And he's got this... He's a little spastic in his route tree, but it works to his advantage. he puts defenders on edge, and he didn't get to showcase a lot because he was at Rutgers. If he was on a better team with a, an even average quarterback and offensive scheme, he'd be much higher up the board. So he's my number 17 guy. Number 18 is Danny Gray out of SMU. There's a lot of kind of smaller slot. Maybe you can play him at the Z, like outside, but lined up off the line of scrimmage. Gray's 4.33 speed. He was really productive at SMU. I really like him. Number 17 was Melton. 18 was Gray. 19 is Romeo Dubes out of Nevada. Really good deep threat receiver, downfield receiver. He had a great partnership with Carson Strong. I love his body control down the field. After that, I've got Isaiah Weston out of Northern Iowa. Super high. He's the discount version of Christian Watson. He's like a little bit shorter, thicker built, so he's stronger. He put like 20-something reps up on the bench. It was ridiculous. He ran like 4.42 in the 40. He had a 40.5-inch or 41-inch vertical. He had a crazy broad jump. Like, he's really explosive. He averaged like 23.5 yards a catch on 37 catches this year. He was first team all Missouri Valley Conference in the FCS. I love him as a day 3 like high upside option. It wouldn't shock me if his tools got him to round 3. Khalil Shakir at Boise State, 21. Now we're getting into kind of like your day 2 guys, like high upside guys. And kind of role-playing receivers. Like, Shakir's a really solid... he's one of those guys who looks fast. He's, like, faster with the ball in his hands. Which is good for a guy who's going to be used in, like, the quick game, jet sweeps, creative screens, and stuff like that. So he's 21. 22, I've got Justin Ross of Clemson because he's tall, he's long, physical, but, he's... The back issues kind of stunted him, and I think he's more limited than, say, even guys like... Or a guy like T. Higgins. I don't think he has even as much wiggle as Higgins. Like, he's not going to create a ton. He doesn't create a ton of separation. Kevin Austin Jr. of Notre Dame comes in at 23. Super, like, physically gifted. He didn't produce a lot. He's really raw. But he's the kind of home run swing you take in round 3. At 24... I'm looking for the name because I'm looking for his first name. I remember his last name. Oh, Makai Polk of Mississippi State. 6'3.5", just under 200 pounds. Once again, he's a really good outside receiver. I love how he attacks the ball in contested catch situations. I think I'm not quite as high on him as I know Matt Miller is like really high on him. I think he's like 15th on his list. But I've not heard a lot of people talk about Polk, and I think he's really good. 25, I've got David Bell out of Purdue. He's not fast. I don't think he's going to create separation at the NFL level. I don't think he's going to be as effective, but he was productive enough to where I couldn't really put him any lower. I'm trying to get through enough guys I think all of them are going to get drafted. So that was 25. 26 is... Oh, dude, I forgot about Tyquan Thornton. move everyone down, except for Weston. So I'm gonna put Thornton at 21. So Thornton's 6'2.5", 6'3", and he was like 180 pounds, but he ran a 4.28 40 at the combine. He's really smooth. I might have him too low. He's like, if you're looking for, once again, if you're looking for the dollar store version of Jameson Williams in this draft, it's Tyquan Thornton. He's not as good, but for teams looking for a long, fast, smooth receiver in that mold, if, say, Kansas City doesn't get Jameson Williams, they could get Tyquan Thornton on day 3. And they've got plenty of picks. They've got, I think, 12 picks, which they need to package some picks and move around because they don't have enough room on their roster for 12 rookie contracts. They just don't. So they need to consolidate and maybe move up and get Williams in the first round. But Thornton's 21, so that moved everyone down. So that's Shakir to 22, Ross to 23, Austin to 24. Polk to 25. I'm going to have Polk higher than a couple of those, but they're all basically the same. Who did I have 26? Sorry, I got down there. I was like, what? I missed him. 26 is Demario Drummond out of Ole Miss, or is David Bell. And then 27 is Dontario Drummond out of Ole Miss. He's another physical receiver. He's not super fast, but I loved his tape. I loved watching him just body people. And he runs, and he'll put his shoulder down after the catch. I really like his attitude after the catch. Charleston Rambo is 28 for me. He's really crafty. I feel like he didn't test well, but there's something about his feel for the game I really like. Ty Freifogel, Indiana, is my 29. Another strong physical receiver. Braylon Sanders out of Ole Miss is 30. I think he's going to have a solid role-playing career. Jalen Naylor out of Michigan State is 31. Josh Johnson out of Tulsa, 32. DeJohn Dixon out of, people are going to kill me if I get the college wrong. I want to say it's Nicholls State is where DeJohn Dixon is from. Big physical receiver. He ran in the low 4.6s. I don't care. He bullies people. Some people can get away with not creating separation, which he creates separation at the end of his routes because of his physicality. N'Keal Harry didn't do that. Slade Bolden comes in at 33. Jalen Virgil of Appalachian State, 34. Eric Azuakama of Texas Tech is 35. Tay Martin of Oklahoma State, 36. Brenton Covey out of Utah, 37. He's really speedy. He's a really good return man, but that's about all I see people getting out of him. And then Devon Williams of Oregon's really high upside, but he never put it together at Oregon. Put him at after Covey. And that's all the guys that I have personally evals on. If there's another guy to add, it'd be Trey Turner of Virginia Tech. I could see him getting drafted late. And Javonte Payton of Tennessee is a fringe. I feel like he's going to go undrafted. But he's one of my guys. From a per-catch basis, Javonte Payton was awesome last year. I think he only had 18, 19 catches, but he had 6 touchdowns, 7 touchdowns. With that being said, I think I've gone for 2 hours. We're going to continue. We're going to go through the offensive line and tight ends tomorrow. And I hear you, Kat. Offensive line and tight ends tomorrow. That'll take a bit. That probably won't take as long as what I did tonight. And then we'll get into the defense. We'll do like defensive front seven, defensive backfield on Wednesday and Thursday. So that being said, appreciate y'all. Hope y'all have a great evening. Get some sleep. Hope you'll have a great day tomorrow. And, tune in to the next show.